Well, good morning and welcome to Rising. We have a fun, tabulous show today, I think, Niall.
Of course, Robbie. Great to see you.
Great to see you. Let's get right to it. Vice President Kamala Harris was in Philadelphia for a CNN town hall where she faced questions from undecided voters. The event was arranged after Trump declined to participate in the second debate with her. While the whole thing sounded like it would be an easy layup for Harris, I think the campaign might be waking up with some regrets this morning. For example, let's take a look at this classic job interview question Harris was asked by one undecided voter. Watch.
What weaknesses do you bring to the table, and how do you plan to overcome them while you're in office?
That's a great question, Joe. Well, I am certainly not perfect, so let's start there. And I think that perhaps a weakness, some would say, but I actually think it's a strength, is I really do value having a team of very smart people around me who bring to my decision-making process different perspectives. My team will tell you I am constantly.
When you're interviewing for a job, which is what she's doing, regardless of the level, you don't say your weakness is a strength. The way you answer this question is, well, I sometimes procrastinate. And then you say, I understand that I do that, and so I'm trying to do it less. You don't say your weakness is a strength. When they ask a question like that, they're looking for personal accountability, which is simple. If you make a mistake, which a human, a flawed person, which is a human, is prone to do, are you going to own up to it? And that's the reason that they asked that question. But when you sit here and say what she's saying, there's no accountability.
Constantly saying, let's kick the tire on that. Let's kick the tires on it.
Or take a look at Anderson Cooper asking Harris if she's ever made a mistake.
I don't think I've ever heard the former president admit a mistake. A lot of politicians don't. Is there something you can point to in your life, political life, or in your life in the last 4 years that you think is a mistake that you have learned from?
I mean, I've made many mistakes. And they range from, if you've ever parented a child, you make lots of mistakes too. In my role as vice president, I mean, I've probably worked very hard at making sure that I am well versed on issues, and I think that is very important. It's a mistake not to be well versed on an issue and feel compelled to answer a question. Mm-hmm.
And here's one more where Cooper was asked about her flip-flop on the border.
Let's just fix this thing. Let's just fix it. Why is there any ideological perspective on this? Let's just fix the problem.
To fix the problem, you're doing this compromise bill. It does call for $650 million that was earmarked under Trump to actually still go to build the wall.
I am not afraid of good ideas where they occur.
So you don't think it's stupid anymore?
I think what he did and how he did it did not make much sense because he actually didn't do much of anything.
I think he did it, and how he did it didn't make much sense because he didn't do much of anything. Wow. What? Huh?
I just talked about that wall, right? We just talked about it. He didn't actually do much of anything.
But you do want to build some wall. Compromise bill. It does call for $650 million that was earmarked under Trump to actually still go to build the wall.
I'm not afraid of good ideas where they occur.
You don't think it's stupid anymore?
Listen.
I think what he did and how he did it did not make much sense because he actually didn't do much of anything. I just talked about that wall, right? We just talked about it. He didn't actually do much of anything.
But you do want to build some wall.
I want to strengthen our border.
In fact, the whole performance had CNN doubting her. Let's watch.
Well, I'll just tell you what I'm hearing from people who I have been talking to, and that is that if her goal was to close the deal, they're not sure she did that. And, you know, some
She said, did it, do, did it, do, did it, do, did it? Oh my goodness. What? A drop. What?
people have asked, is she being held to a different standard? Maybe. But that's maybe the world that she's living in.
When she doesn't want to answer a question, her habit is to kind of go to word salad city, and she did that on a couple of answers.
You'd think she'd be prepared to do this by now. You know, what's a mistake you've made? Nothing. What's a weakness you have? Nothing. What's the first law you want to pass? Nothing. What's a policy difference between you and Joe Biden? Nothing. Over and over and over. Empty, empty, empty. If she were an animal, she'd be a duck-billed platitude.
To be fair, not everyone felt that
duck-billed
Harris's answers had no substance. Here's one reaction from an undecided voter.
I believe it was you that asked the weakness question. You know, what is your biggest weakness? And she brought up that she has people around her that she can trust, that she can get the answer from. In my line of work in IT, I don't expect everybody to know the answer. I expect them to know how to get the answer. And her specifically, that resonated with me.
What did you think of Kamala Harris's performance?
I thought that it reminded me of the old Kamala Harris, who I had found underwhelming back in the 2020 primary. Like most people who cover national politics, that was my first time really watching her up close. I had thought when she first launched that campaign back then, okay, this is kind of interesting. It's a woman, a black woman from the biggest state in the nation. She seems perhaps quite charismatic, and then that campaign just sort of petered out in unimpressive fashion. Now, this year, there was a brief phase in this campaign around the time of her wrapping up the nomination, the convention, and the first debate, which I do think she won pretty clearly. And I was like, oh, has Kamala Harris, improved when no one was watching while she was vice president? And I watched that last night and was like, no, she hasn't really. It's the same person.
Yeah, when she's asked, what are your mistakes or what are your regrets? I mean, she could say that the campaign I ran in 2019 and 2020 was to the left of where the country is, and I realize that now, and so we've revised some of our policies. I think that would be an honest answer. No politician wants to ever admit that they've changed the issues they're running on, but she clearly has, including when she was called out about supporting money for border funding and all of that. You know, I think what she's saying on that issue now sounds pretty moderate, pretty not divisive, and is reflective of the fact that Republicans are winning on the immigration issue, and that the mood of the country on immigration has shifted substantially to the right, or a rightward direction in public opinion on this is finally being noticed by people. And she has a fine answer now, but it is in contrast with the position she took on this several years ago. So I don't know if she reassured people that those are not. That's the danger with her. If you're a moderate, between moderate and conservative, but you don't like Trump and you are willing to vote for Kamala Harris, but do you trust that this version of her is the real version?
Right, exactly. And you said about the mood of the nation on immigration. Now, whether that has changed, whether it has moved right, or a more conservative sentiment has been noted, the fact is that there is the suspicion with Harris that she is trying to comport herself or shape herself to fit the mood of the time, as she tried, having not been, frankly, a particularly progressive prosecutor back in 2020, around the time that there was I don't think the George Floyd thing had happened, but there was certainly a lot of energy behind Black Lives Matter and all of.
Yeah, that's going to be the end of this, because quite frankly, these two are talking too much. But I find it fascinating with this vice president / presidential candidate, that the way I've watched every single interview, rally, anything that this lady has done, I've watched all of it. As far as interviews go, she has not answered one question. And she's coming up on 90 days of running numerous interviews, especially the last month. Numerous interviews. She's somewhere every day, multiple places, and on some days. This lady has not answered one question. Now, what that leads me to believe if she actually did answer a question, she wouldn't stand on it. Right? And what that means is that she's going to be her old progressive self, which is allowing taxpayer funded sex changes to imprisoned illegal immigrants, among the plethora of all the other things that she stands for. Now, she says she's against fracking. And then in the next breath, she says, my values haven't changed. When before she was for fracking. She was for banning fracking. My apologies. Excuse me. So, my basic point with this lady, she's not going to answer any questions. She hasn't answered any questions. And she's going to continue to do the extremist, communist things that she has stood on in the past. So, I'm early voting tomorrow. Yeah, and she's not going to be my early vote.